Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Thursday, October 1st, first day of the month, first day of the trading month. And I think, I've got the theme of the day listed right in front. I think that's a contributing factor always on the first of the month. There's generally new money put to work on the first day of the month, sometimes on the 15th of the month as well, but usually largely if you can kind of take advantage of that. Of course, they don't really make it easy for us because, we're kind of wrapped around these political headlines that just don't seem to go away with this second round of stimulus. And it reminds me of a couple of years ago when they had the trade talks going on with China. The trade talks are going well, the trade talks are constructive. And then, then you would hear they're not going well. It would just go on forever. So I don't mean to make a joke out of the situation because, I think Americans do need this second stimulus round, and I don't want to get into politics, but I think for our standpoint, it's a distraction for trading right now to kind of hear this, go back and forth. So I think that's kind of the major theme of the day. Really, a lot of trading opportunities. Again, it has felt like this week. I've used this analogy before. I kind of borrowed this from one of the Tribeca Trade Group members, is that the way that this market has been going this week is a little bit different. We talked about for the most part in September, just a recap from a few weeks back, was that the market, it seemed like the wind was in your face, right? The market breadth was bad, multiple days out of those weeks. And the price action, we would try to bounce, and then we would be met with selling pressure and could not get out of a short-term downtrend. We refer to that as kind of the when the market breadth is like that the wind is in your face. So if you're trying to trade, you're kind of doing more forcing trades and you're fighting the tape. This week, it seems like the wind is at our backs a little bit, even though we're getting these herky-jerky moves with a little bit of this headline risk that we're seeing whenever. Oh, look at this! Whenever there's whenever there's a headline, the market is reacting to it, to whether or not Lennar boosts annual dividend. Okay, well, I'm long some Lennar, so I just wanted to pay attention to that, to just hit the tape. But it does feel, I think to me it feels a little bit better, and I tend to press a little bit more when I see that things are more attractive, and when I'm seeing opportunities that I didn't see a couple weeks ago, I begin to press a little bit more. And you could see from my trading, and we'll go through plenty of these trades, but I get a bit more aggressive, right? And again, we talked about that in yesterday's video, like things that you've learned, takeaways from the last couple weeks, in September, that should be redefining, I think, your trading style a little bit and what you're doing, right? So it's good to have that top view picture and then kind of drill down, into the nitty gritty and look for some opportunities. I spend a lot of time setting alerts too, so that I've got them at particular pivot areas of where I want to add trades. And if the alert goes off and the setup looks the same, I'm going to add a trade basically. So that's how it kind of works for me, as long as the investment climate looks. By the way, this video is for information purposes only, not giving it out any advice or recommendations. Now, the other thing is, so yes, I felt today that there was some decent opportunities, and again, I'll go through a couple charts in just a second. I just wanted to finish my thought. I think besides the headlines about this second stimulus package, I think overall we do have this election that's going to be coming around the corner. So I continue to think, the best way to trade this market is to be, position a little bit lighter, right? And to make sure that you're managing how many, as always, you should be thinking about these things, or I should be thinking about these things, in terms of how many positions you want to keep on, what type of risk you're taking. Are you trading options? Are you trading stock? And you know, basically checking the boxes and making sure that you're not adding, you're not getting caught in too much exposure, even though we're seeing all kinds of option activity, right? We see this type of option activity, you could see in the top right of my screen, how many trades that, interesting trades that we're seeing, momentum, AMD, Chewy saw some, but I think those are more like momentum, right? I think once a name starts to move, the momentum players just start buying things. But the last couple days, there's just been. It seems like there are some. Uh, it seems like there's some momentum on the tape, and of course, you're going to see more call activity, right? So you have to make sure that you're not like a kid in a candy shop just going crazy and buying everything, right? There's a difference between pressing, but at the end of the day, what I tend to do, through the last hour, some people are really good and they can take off the trades like at the exact high. There's some trades that I want to stay in. There's other trades that I want to make sure like I'm holding. I'll use a poker analogy that I'm holding the best hand. Um, so there's a little bit of that going on too. But I hit in the Chinese Internet ETF, hit a target in that one. I could have taken a target later in the day, but I just kind of held off for now. I traded some Docu, which this was one that I decided to unwind at the end of the day. This was a name that I came in a little bit long, some options, because I knew that I think that the CEO was on Kramer last night. I was just looking for a bounce off of that and a move outside of value. So I think this stock, I'm just going to continue to watch this one. But again, it just, another similar analogy. I only want to put the best players on the field, and there's a number of trades that I'm seeing that there's some opportunity with. Crowd worked very well right off the bat. This is a name that I like to stay long a bit. So, even if it comes back in a little bit, if it comes back into that, if it happens to have an inside day tomorrow or comes into 139.26, I might be a buyer in there. So, there's certain names where I give a little bit more leeway that I like for a little bit longer term. Okta was another one too, and I just kind of said, hey, I don't want to add several trades on in the same space. But Okta looks kind of interesting here, poking its head out. There also was some January 22 calls that went up in Okta, and SE is another one that you'll find me trafficking a lot. I like names that that are in established uptrends that continue to act very well, even when the market pulls back. So you'll see me in and out of this name. And I got back into this one today, and there was a lot of call activity. Now I don't know what they're doing with call activity. We never know. My opinion always of call activity, some of it's right, some of it's wrong. But in a name that I really like, it kind of does push me into a name a little bit more, knowing that I'm seeing some positioning in the name. Mostly short-term stuff, by the way, in C Limited. But this is a name you hear me talk about quite a lot. DraftKings played that for a little bit of a day trade, so I'd like to mix it up a little bit with day trading. I'll tell you, this DraftKings just continues to chug higher. So this is another one where I try to pay attention, when this thing kind of comes into a little bit of a dip. And this thing ended up doing very well. Where did I buy this thing? Oh, I guess it was right in here. Yeah, I just noticed that it pulled back a little bit and just played for a quick scalp in that one and was out pretty quickly. Chewy, this is a name that we kind of set up earlier in the morning. I was looking at the 1 hour. I said a couple times, I said, keep an eye on this thing. It's a name that another one that like I'll come back to every now and then, but it just looked like it was nicely consolidating here. And if you go back to this hourly chart, here is where I set the alert, right around 57. And sorry, under 57. It must have been around 56.50. So a lot of times that really helps me kind of manage my trading is just setting alerts where I'm interested in a name, and then once it does trigger, and I give it a second to make sure it does trigger, and then I kind of go into it. So this closed close to the highs. I did decide to do options with this particular trade, and there's plenty of things to kind of look at up here where this thing could possibly get to. We have an R1 Venom line, which is an extension away from the value area. That is an area to pay attention to, 59.75. And then there's a version point of control up at 61.80. That would be a great place to target for this trade if it catches a little bit more momentum. Nice volume on the day in this thing too. All right, so that's another one. And then I kind of played a little bit of like getting out of some trades. I mentioned the docu. I was in Chipotle's, I think from last week. Spice was a little trade. This is a name with a big short interest. So this is one that I don't have so much conviction in. But if the chart speaks to me, I will, get involved in it. This is the 1 hour. This is the 1 hour chart in this one. The value, it didn't make it all the way through value. It got close. But again, high short, a name with a high short interest. The chart doesn't look bad on the daily. It's above value. Again, I've been getting a lot of questions about value areas. Why they are so important to me is because they give me a sense if something is trending or if something is in a range, right? And in a range, why it's not interesting when it's in a range is because this is where all the volume, had occurred from the previous period, right? So I don't want to get involved with too many names that are in a range. I want to trade once a name gets going and starts to move out of consolidation. That's it. That's basically what I'm looking to do, is wait for a name to kind of get out of its range. And you could see how well this works, right? Here, it tried to get out of range, out of this particular value area back in April. Here was another one back in May, right? Notice how this thing is, the value areas worked really well for this stock and many others. But SPCE stayed in value, for all of June as well. So again, this type of thing for me tells me to avoid the stock. And then notice how slim the value area got here. And once this got out of value, look at what it did, right? So it gave you all those, gave you a nice trading opportunity, right? Do you see how that picture changes once a name gets out of value? Notice again, really wide value area because the value areas are based on the last period, right, of volume at price, right? So this is the range, and this is the where the majority of the volume occurred from the previous period, right? Also, now it's doing something different, so it's above value for the month. That has me intrigued, even though I don't like this name because it doesn't have any revenues. But, it's purely playing momentum and playing a story, which half the time is what it's about anyway. All right, so that's a couple things there. Lennar, I managed to hit another target at the end of the day. Right, we've talked about this name a couple times. Here's another good example. Right, consolidation. Right, this thing was flirting with breaking out a couple times. Now it looks a little bit more real. So I'm playing it. Right, so that's part of my trading system, right, is to look for names that are a little bit higher probability setups, right? We talked about Tesla earlier in the week too, right? Tesla, I tried trading yesterday. It did finally get above value on the 1 hour, right? So we'll move over to the 1 hour chart, right? It just didn't have momentum. It didn't have any major volume to push it, but look at what it did today, right? So different picture. And we have new value areas today because it's the first day of the month. But you could see this thing it's got a new value area for the month, and 451 is resistance. So we're getting fairly close to the resistance, and we'll see if it wants to get out of value tomorrow. All right. Okay, so that's pretty much it for today. For today's video, performers, I didn't really go over that. Kind of interesting that the VIX was a little bit higher today, along with the market, right? Not hugely. Like I do pay attention to when we have like an issue like that. I would call it when the S&P is higher and the VIX is. However, VIX is only up 1%. It concerns me more if the S&P, closed up like it did, up about 60 basis points. And if the VIX was up like 4 or 5%, I would say that doesn't look right. It's up 1%. You have to understand, like 1% is pretty variable with the VIX, so I'm not that concerned about that. I am concerned about the overall market going into the election because I do think it'll be choppy, and it's going to give us opportunities on both sides of the market, right? So again, I think that you want to be prepared for that, and yeah. Best performing groups. This solar, I've been talking about solar stocks now for a long time, but I mean, this is absolutely unbelievable how many names are doing this. I would assume part of this move is it is some type of election thinking that's going on, but solar stocks have been strong. They've been one of the leading groups for a lot more than what you might think is going on with the election, right? With the current administration, solar stocks have done wonderfully. So I don't know if that's the extra kick that it's getting, but this is pretty amazing. 56, the whole group, right? So, I mean, you got about 5 names that are doing this. You got ENPH, right, which has been seeing. I got out of the ENPH, I think, yesterday. So I missed the damn thing was up 8% today. 8% today after the run that it's had. Unbelievable. And SETG, for a while I've talked about these 2 names, right? These are my 2 favorite names in the space. I also traded this one last week too, and I guess I was a little bit too chicken to stay in this trade. CSIQ is a name that we saw call activity, I think yesterday or the day before. Sometimes I mix up my days. JKS is another one. I mean, look at this thing. From 20 to, I mean, this thing has basically doubled since in a couple weeks. I mean, remarkable, right? SPWR's got a nice little move to it too, but and what's the other one? Is it VSSL, VSSR or something? Vivian? Yeah, this is another one that not too many people know about too, but phew, unreal. It's fun when stocks do this, and I am long the solar ETF, so I'll stop crying about how I got rid of ENPH yesterday for profits, by the way. There's nothing wrong, but by the way, right? It's like the old saying: you don't go broke making, locking in profits, right? There's nothing wrong with that, and it's tough to know when these names are going to go berserk. But that's why I have some of these things in a longer term account. Not that the Tribeca Trade Group portfolio is a long-term account. It's a trend-following account, right? So this has been in there for a while. I wish I at one time contemplating putting in PBW, and I never pulled the trigger on adding this to the portfolio. It's kind of interesting, the difference in the shares. There's a lot of solar in here too. Where's the holdings here? Yeah, actually, this LAC is now the biggest weight in this thing, which is only 3.5%. But you got, so again, much different looking basket. Oh, by the way, Run is another solar name. I forgot that one. But that's another one that's gone crazy or ballistic. But you got a lot of like things like Neo in here, Workhorse. So this is not a bad, if you want exposure to names that have huge volatility, because they do, right? Workhorse, all these top 10 names in here are extremely volatile names. An ETF, I think, is a little bit better in this situation because of the high volatility with this group. Just a thought. I'm not making any recommendations or anything like that, but just noticing that it's a more interesting way. Not more interesting way, but a little bit more diversified way, so that you don't have single stock risk. Because again, some of these names, like they're you have to manage how much you're going to put into a name that has super high volatility, like many of these names do. Neo, by the way, which I got into earlier in the week, still looking pretty good. I was a little bit worried about that candle yesterday, but I like this. It's holding the breakout. So, really nice here, and I'm still long this thing after taking several targets. Is one of the things that I said yesterday in the room was, hey, I've taken 3 or 4 targets. Now I want to keep the last piece on. somewhere in here. Yeah. Anyway, it's in here somewhere. Some way, somewhere, some way, somewhere. All right. Pins was another name too. Geez, I mean, so that's what I mean. Like, I think today give you a lot of trading opportunities. This was also like a Motley Fool pick, which I'll tell you, these guys move markets. When they list a name, Motley Fool, that's on their list to, recommended list, the stocks really move. It's pretty crazy. But this name was up 7%. I actually made a little bit of a boo boo. I put on a trade yesterday in pins for a day trade, and I it was right at the end of the day, and I left it on, and I got rewarded for making a little bit of a mistake. That doesn't happen often. So anyway, guys, great day overall. Our room has just been really on fire. So, again, I thank everybody for doing what they do on a daily basis and your business. It's just been a great year, knock on wood, so far. And I'll have a P&L video a little bit later, but I'm just so excited and enthused about the rest of the year with as many awesome members in the room who are phenomenal traders, and I'm just very appreciative of everything and everything that we have going on. I don't think there's a better place anywhere around to do trading than at Tribeca Trade Group. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.